Welcome to the WanderLearn Show. I'm your host, Tapon. In this episode, I have Lauren Speeth. She is the author of a new book that is called Taking the Stairs and Liking It. It is her life lessons that she has that were all inspired by her chance meeting with the President of the United States, Jimmy Carter, back in the 1970s. And it was a transformative event. Sometimes these things happen. Seminal events just change your life course, and that certainly happened with her. And so please enjoy this episode with her. Also, be sure to go to ftapon.substack.com to subscribe to my newsletter. I tried to transfer my 4,000 people that were in my subscriber list to Substack, and it didn't allow it. So I have to go manually rebuild my mailing list. So do me a favor and go back and subscribe to my Substack so you can get my weekly newsletter along with my podcast. All right, here you go, Lauren.
It did change my life. About 20 years ago, I was at a place where I was able to really try to make a difference in the world. I had always done a little bit while I was working hard, but I had a chance to maybe try to do something more significant. And it was so big and so daunting that I was completely overwhelmed. And yet I had this awesome opportunity to have a private conversation with President Carter.
1 second. Tell us about where you were stuck right before your meeting. Like, describe that a little bit more.
We all want to help, and it's all so big and so broken, right? I'm sure that a lot of us have felt like, how can little me do anything? And that's the way I was feeling. And I had a phone call and an offer for a few minutes with President Carter, and I asked President Carter, how can I feel not so small and insignificant against this big, broken, daunting world? And something about the nuclear engineer in him saw the computer programmer background in me, and he gave me a logical 7 things that I ought to think about.
Right.
And that it was also kind of a yes, you can. Here's a former president, one of the most powerful people in the world, saying to little me, yes, you can, which was big.
But so you met him, and he gave you 7 things to think about, just like an engineer. He was in the Navy.
Yeah.
And nuclear engineer.
7 things. But they were things to do to be successful doing things. And I put them into practice, and I started studying them. I went back to school and studied them, and I kind of made them my own. I used them in projects, and I taught them to students all around the world. But as I was doing this, I also got to know the Carter Center, and I got to know President Carter better. And as I did over these years, I realized what he had taught me was not just something for being good at something, which it was.
Yes.
It was for having an amazing life. Like, he has an amazing life, and it's a life of service, and it's a positive life of really getting something, being something of value in this world.
Yeah, and President Carter has been critiqued for his policies and some decisions as president, all that kind of stuff, but almost nobody questions his character. Right. That's one thing almost everybody, even his harshest critics, will agree to, that the man had integrity, that he had a sense of purpose, and that he had a good guiding light. And he lived his life that way.
Yes.
And that's, in some ways, the best that we can all do. And whether we execute perfectly, that's another issue.
And we don't have to. Right. And he said that. He said he's willing to risk failure if he feels like something's worth trying. He told me that. He also said some things over the years, like as long as he had breath, he was going to keep trying to make a positive difference.
How did you actually get that opportunity? Like, who called you up, or what happened? What was the logistics of that?
That was a surprise to me, because I feel it was an answered prayer. You can take that as you want it, but to me it was an answered prayer. The phone rang. It was Seema Shams of the Carter Center saying, I would like to speak with Lauren Speeth, please. And I said, yeah, this is she. And that's how it came about. President Carter's going to be in town. Would you like to attend? Of course.
Well, what town was it?
It was in San Francisco.
Okay.
And I, of course, and then he's having a few private conversations. Would you like one of them?
Wow.
Absolutely the answer, because what I had been asking for was help, guidance. I was at a loss because I really didn't know. You can throw your head against the wall a lot and not make any kind of a significant difference in anything if you haven't got a plan.
Right. Okay. So let's dive into this, because Lauren, there's people listening to this or watching this, and they're at a similar state that you were over 20, 25 years ago.
Yeah.
And you could become their Jimmy Carter virtually, in the sense that you could.
I can be their conduit through.
Sure. In the sense. So describe a little bit more about your state, seeing if people who are listening are empathizing with how you were right before you met him.
Right.
And then we'll get into kind of the key things to unlock.
Right.
So,
well, maybe you're at a loss. Maybe you see something that's big and broken and you don't know how your way in. You don't know how you might make a difference. You could throw your whole weight against it. You could throw your whole money against it and not move the needle. Right? It's like a Sisyphean rock. You're just pushing it and it come right back at you. Right? And
this could be either a business idea, a nonprofit, maybe even a family thing that it can be any kind of challenge that you're facing that you want to overcome and execute on. And yet for some reason you feel stuck,
overwhelmed.
Right.
And a little despondent, almost saddened. That's where I was.
Right.
And then I started feeling energized. Like, okay, what he said was, find your vision. What's your vision? And your vision is going to be different than mine. He said, go somewhere where your special skills matter. His special skills are different than mine. Yours are different than mine. You do podcasts. If you have, audiovisual and all these other things that I'm different set of skills than you.
Sure.
And then find your authentic niche. He didn't go where he was just going to be some warm body. He went where he uniquely was going to be helpful.
Right. And so I guess, doesn't that take a certain amount of introspection that some people may lack? Sometimes we don't know, or we have these beliefs that are limiting because, I really feel this, but I'm not good enough.
Oh gosh, you're so right. When I was talking to students in India and I asked them to name special skills, not one of them named one. And I had to start naming special skills for them. Any of you can ride a bike. Any of you can ride a motorcycle. Any of you can drive a car. Any of you can speak a different language. How about Hindi? How about Urdu? How about English? They weren't owning all the special skills that they have. We all have so many special skills and we don't own them sometimes.
Now, one of the key things you say at the beginning of your book is that vision is step one.
Vision is definitely step one.
Describe that.
If you don't know where you're going, all roads get the same. Right?
Any road will
to your road. Right? Wouldn't the Cheshire Cat say that? So, really, vision is, and you can even have a vague sense of it and take the first step. And the first step, trusting that the first step will inform the next step.
What was your vision with your company, Elfenworks?
Well, it started out as websites for musicians. And it grew, and it changed, and it evolved as things do. And now it's pretty much in educational media, pretty much mostly focused on environmental education. Although we're also helping teach Morse code with music. We're doing some very strange and interesting projects.
So you're using different forms of media to educate people a bit, for example, global climate change and maybe species reduction and endangered species. Does that imagine?
Well, we're basically trying to help students understand how they might be able to make a difference. So it's the usual same thing that we're all
right. I mean, and you were also saying to me earlier before we started recording about how you feel that for some people, they're viewing the world in 2026 and beyond as a dark time. as like and so how do you, for those who are feeling that, how do you brighten them up?
Right. Well, for one thing, I think we've always had dark times. I graduated college in a dark time, and there have been, like the barbarians at the gates. It's always been that way.
Good point.
So what do? Do you see it as a problem or an opportunity? The darker the time, the more important your one candle shines.
Right. And I always like to remind people when they say that, now is the most divided time in American history. I'm like, wait, I think there was something called the Civil War that was a little bit more divided. Like we've been there before.
Brother fighting brother.
Right. I mean, nothing gets worse than that. And the tumult that happened in the 1960s was, a lot of change that was happening. And for some people living in the 1960s, it probably felt like it was the end of times. It was like, we're falling apart. We're going to collapse. And the Vietnam War was ending and we were losing that one. And it just seemed totally hopeless. And nuclear war, of course. Yeah.
We were going down. I was a child of that time. We were going down to the basements because we thought that might help us if there were
a nuclear strike.
Of course it wouldn't.
Well, especially if it was near you. Yeah, absolutely. Or if there are enough bombs, it's not going to help you either. So you say step one, in case you're kind of obsessed with the negativity of the day, is remind yourself that there's always been negativity in the world. If you want to look for it, it'll be there.
Right. That's a good way of putting it.
Right. And then step two. I mean.
And find your vision. What is it that you're passionate about? What is it that you talk about a lot with your friends? What is it that you have extra knowledge about?
Right. And yeah, exactly. And I agree with that. That's a critical thing. I talked about that a little bit in my book as well. But identifying your passion, that you naturally go to like websites, and nobody's paying you to go to the websites, but you're learning about something.
Yeah,
and
you love it.
Right.
Love it. You grab that knowledge.
Tell me about the term non-duplication.
Yeah, that's the one that bothered most of my students most of the time.
It bothers me too.
Okay. It does. I wish I had a better term for it. Maybe I'll come up with one someday. It doesn't mean reinventing the wheel, and that's what my students got stuck with. It just means going where you're needed. So if your heart is set on having a grocery store, and
that sounds like duplication to me.
And let's say that, and there's a grocery store right nearby.
Right.
That you putting your grocery store there is not only is it being duplication,
right.
It's predatory because you're going to cut into this other person's life, right? Life shillet. So go put a grocery store somewhere else if that's your passion. So
that's the concept of non-duplication. Don't feel bad about copying an idea.
Right.
But just look for the niche where it will fit that's currently has
your
a vacuum.
Authentic niche. Exactly. Dr. Paul Farmer, the late Dr. Paul Farmer, who started Partners in Health, he took Western medicine from Harvard. Harvard is wonderful medicine, and he took it to Haiti, where it was needed. Same medicine. He didn't invent Western medicine.
Right. And that brings up the idea of partnership.
And it was partnership. Yeah.
That you have to realize that nobody does anything by themselves. We all have
an island.
Right. Anybody who's successful, it's a team effort, whether you are a solopreneur or not.
Right. Absolutely.
You need to. So I think it's incumbent on people to understand that asking for help is not a bad thing, right? I mean, at some point, we all need to ask for help. We can't do everything ourselves.
Right. Which is why partnership is one of the 7.
Right.
And sharing the credit, because there's a lot of people who just want to keep all the credit to themselves, and that doesn't bode well for long-term partnership.
Right. And I think Jimmy Carter was good at that.
He was great at sharing the credit.
Right.
In fact, I saw him give away credit to people who didn't deserve it.
Mm-hmm.
And I just thought that was so generous.
How do you, Lauren, get feedback on yourself?
Well, I ask for it.
Mm-hmm. Who do you ask? Doesn't that matter?
It does matter. It matters who you ask. And there's people who I wouldn't ask feedback for because there's feedback from people I know wish me well. And then there's the trolls who I wouldn't want to, you have to turn off your ears to certain people. But I have friends from a long time who I trust to be fully honest with me. I remember once, I try to be self-aware, but I'm not always. One time, I had drunk so much, I got into drinking carrot juice.
Oh, okay. Did your armpits become orange?
I became somewhat orange,
Yeah.
and I didn't really notice. And one of my friends from a long time, she said, look, not cut it out. But say, oh,
Your drink has become orange.
you're orange. God, I thought I was a little more self-aware than that. I've been looking in the mirror. I'm orange, but no, it's all right. So you need someone who is willing to look you in the face and tell you when you're orange.
Right. Good.
Or when you're just going down a road or you have no idea.
Yeah. And I think I remember somebody telling me, ask for feedback on books of on your book from people who are kind of going to buy your book, probably buy your book. Those are the people who you really want to listen to. But somebody who's not into, let's say, nonfiction books, don't listen to them because they're never going to buy a nonfiction book.
Right.
So, you know.
When I was working on this book for beta readers, I got somebody who was in their 80s, I got somebody in their 40s, and I got somebody in high school.
Perfect.
And I got feedback that was very helpful.
From each thing.
From each.
Yeah, especially because they're already interested in you and your message. And that's at least they have to be positively disposed to that. If, for example, if they say, well, I don't read self-help books.
Right. Then it wouldn't.
They're not a good beta reader.
Right. But the young person said, you have this thing about stick shifts. Nobody drives a stick shift anymore.
Oh, yeah.
Nobody drives a stick shift anymore.
He's right. He's right.
Right.
Yeah.
And he quoted the statistics on how many people, too.
I think
you are smart.
Is it 5-10%?
It's almost nothing. I drive a stick shift.
Okay, yeah. I do, but not anymore because it's not even available. Anyway, that's another story. What about stamina, Lauren? You're going to go whenever you're pursuing some sort of goal that's hard, and many of the best goals to achieve are hard.
Right.
You need stamina. You need to be able to bounce back. What kind of secrets do you give to people to bounce back and to stick with something, and knowing also when to give up?
That's a really good question. That's why I have an entire chapter on that. Perseverance, which is tough because it means standing back up again after you fall down, after you get pushed down, after something that you love gets broken down. Right? That is hard. Having a good team, people that can help remind you that your efforts are worthwhile, that's a useful thing. I have the idea of having a playlist that can help lift you up, lift your spirits.
Yeah, there are certain songs.
There are songs. There was a song that got me through high school, for example.
Oh, wow. What song was it?
With a Little Luck, right?
Yeah.
And that dates me, but that's what got me through high school.
Yeah, absolutely. So using music as a way to kind of being a catalyst for your mood. Right. And shifting you out of the doldrums, or you're stuck in a rut.
Right.
Sometimes Tony Robbins sometimes talks about people just get up and pound your chest and do exercises, and just even if your mind is down, if you physically move your body, you can actually change your mind.
Right. That makes sense.
And to me, that makes sense.
It's like smiling and then you're happy.
Yes. Make the body lead the brain, as opposed to usually the brain leads the body. But,
right.
I'm depressed, so then I slump. Well, then if you're slumping, well, then get up straight and start moving around. And that can somehow get you some stamina. What are some of the success stories with some of the people that you've mentored? Because you mentored a lot of young people. Tell me one that really makes you feel proud.
Wow. Well, there's a few. We had one intern here who then started working with San Bruno Mountain Watch. And they put together a process and came out with a T-shirt and all the rest, and to try to help elevate the elfin. An elfin is a butterfly that is endangered right here on San Bruno Mountain. Oh. And what happened was it caught a little fire, and somebody, not fire literally.
Right.
And
became viral.
It became a little bit viral, and they ended up getting some more funding.
Oh.
so that little bit that we did, that our intern did, ended up being a catalyst for more funding for them.
Literally the butterfly effect.
The butterfly effect, literally. So that was wonderful.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is inspiring. And what is the thing that you found when writing this book that you wish you would have put into it?
What you just said. I wish I would have done the body thing. If I had known that, I would have put it right in. But it seems every interview that I have, I learn something. And every time I talk with students, I learn something.
Sure. Yeah, they have a new perspective. And I think that's why students are often innovators.
Right. They don't know what they don't know. They don't know that it has to be this way.
Right.
So it doesn't have to be that way for them. So they can just invent.
Speaking about invention, how would you like to reinvent yourself, or for the rest of this decade? What are kind of like your vision for your company and for your future?
Wow. Well, I used to make 10-year plans, and I don't.
I'm just asking for 5 years, not 10.
Okay. A 5-year plan.
Mm-hmm.
I would.
What's your vision? See, I read that in this.
I have a.
What's Lauren's vision?
I have a vision of spreading hope to more and more students. I have a vision of spreading this in various languages as well. And I would like to hear back from students as to how it's going. That would make me very happy. We have certain projects that I have ideas for how those might grow, and I have a vision for those.
And you're not dealing exclusively with students. With students, because there's plenty of adults.
Absolutely.
Who would benefit from reading.
Oh no, absolutely not. This could be any age.
Right.
And for example, you're just retiring and you don't know, and now you have free time, but it's so big and daunting. What are you going to do now?
Right. Or divorced, or you moved to place.
You're divorced, or yes, you had to move, or your family had to move, so there you are in a new place. And what are you going to do now? Or
any transition zone that you.
Transition zone.
This could help redirect you.
Absolutely. In fact,
because sometimes the stairs are a pain in the ass, but you have to learn to like it.
Well, they grow you because you get strengthened as you go upstairs as opposed to taking an elevator. Right. But there's always something that can be done that can be positive. I talk in the book about my older sister who had COPD. She had emphysema.
Okay.
But she still had a vision. Her vision was to try to get people to not smoke. So she teamed up with me. That's partnership.
Okay.
And we put together a little video on how you can quit.
Can I put that in the description?
Absolutely.
Okay.
If you want, you can even put the whole video in.
Okay. I'll put it in the description. I'll add a link. Lauren, it's been a pleasure. I want to encourage people. You'll find this on Amazon, correct?
Yes.
And the book is Taking the Stairs and Liking It. It's by Lauren Speeth. And go to your website,
Elfenworksproductions.com.
I'll put a link in the description as well. Thank you again, Lauren. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening all the way to the end of this WanderLearn show. I am now using Substack.com to deliver my podcast and weekly newsletter, so please subscribe to my free Substack newsletter by using the link in the show notes. Or, if you've got a good memory, browse to ftapon.substack.com. Why ftapon? Well, it's my first initial and my last name. In fact, whatever social media app you use, including YouTube, if you search for ftapon, you'll find me, so connect with me. My website is also ftapon.com. Do you have an idea, question, or comment? Leave me an anonymous voicemail at speakpipe.com/ftapon. Lastly, become a WanderLearner by joining my paid subscriptions on Substack or patreon.com/ftapon. Wherever you join, I will reward you regularly. Tell your friends to subscribe to the WanderLearn Show. If you review the WanderLearn Show, I'll share your review on a future episode. This is Francis Tapon, encouraging you to wander and learn.